performance out of them, showing how dominant that program is. As we get ready now for the men's 5,000 meters, Lawi Lalang, the great University of Arizona runner, setting that record 7 seasons ago. He also has the meet record with a slower time. And Tyler Day of Northern Arizona up in Flagstaff, another great program, deadly in cross country. He has the best time in the country indoors in the 5,000 this year, and of course he is in this race.
Well, don't let that deceive you either, Dwight. That 13:31 was a converted time from very, very high altitude. He only ran 14:02, but because he's racing at 7,000 feet there up in Flagstaff, he gets a huge conversion, so he comes up with the fastest time in the country. But that is the guy that I think we're going to really have to keep our eyes on. Wisconsin is essentially trying to win the NCAA championships with 2 guys, Oliver Hoare and this guy, Morgan McDonald. Can they do it with 2 distance runners? They have to place so high. Morgan McDonald has to win the 5K. Oliver Hoare has to win the mile. They both have to run the 3K. They got to win the distance medley relay, and the question is, can they do it? This guy is the overwhelming favorite. He's only been beaten 1 time this indoor season, and that was by Grant Fisher at the Millrose Games.
16 competitors in this 5,000 meter final. The only other finals on the track today will be the distance medley relay, which will follow this 5,000 meters for both women and for men. Always exciting. Laps of this 200-meter oval. Second time it's hosted the NCAA championships.
Well, as the women finished, Elise Monson from Wisconsin, she comes away the winner, and I just happened to glance down at the distance medley relay foursomes that are listed to run here, and Elise Monson, are we going to see her come back and run a mile at the end of that distance medley relay? She gets about the same amount of time as rest as Morgan McDonald is essentially going to get. They're going to need Morgan McDonald. Wisconsin men are going to need Morgan McDonald now to anchor that distance medley relay. So kind of a very interesting scenario unfolding here at the end of day 1.
She mentioned a sandwich, a shower, and going to sleep. I did not hear an anchor on the DMR in that litany, so I'm saying no. So look at all this movement, and they didn't call them back. Okay, well, let's see. Let's see how the Alabama crew does here. They've got a couple of guys in here who ran team tactics at the conference meet here a couple of weeks ago.
Well, Vincent Kiprop from Alabama was second at last year's championships, but hasn't quite shown the form that he showed last year. So we'll see how he fares. But really, the question is, I think, can Morgan McDonald get to the front? Can he slow this pace down? Can he do as little work as possible and come away with a win? I don't think that's going to happen because there's just too many guys in this race that want to push it.
And that's what you need to do when you've got a guy that's going to be trying to go to the front and slow it down. You got a lot of guys in this race who live and train at altitude. BYU, of course, at Provo is way up there. NAU in Flagstaff, very, very high.
That's Clayton Young up front with BYU. That's Edwin Kurgat from Iowa State. You expect him to be up there. And for NAU, that's not Tyler Day. That's the youngster, Luis Grijalva. Young man having a heck of a season. He's got a 13:49 personal best. Only ran 14:11 at the Big Sky Championships. That was high altitude in Bozeman, Montana.
So that's Connor McMillan for BYU up in front. For Iowa State, Edwin Kurgat. You mentioned Luis Grijalva, the freshman from Northern Arizona. And McDonald's still well back. Number 1 on his hip, that's John Dressel of Colorado. Part of that strong cross-country contingent that the Buffs always bring to the Pac-12 cross-country, losing the men's title for the first time since they've been in the conference this last fall.
Well, that's Clayton Young up front now. He's joined by Connor McMillan. I'd like to see the freshman up there from NAU. NAU has just had such a fantastic distance program for years, and they're being benefited, I think, by so many professional and elite athletes, Dwight, now going up to that high altitude. I got a chance to talk to some of those guys from the Nike running group, and they're at high altitude. They come down to Phoenix and they run. They go back up for a week or two to prepare for their events, but all those college athletes around those elite athletes really does rub off. Robert Brandt from UCLA, he's one of those guys who you can always count on being up front, pushing the pace a little bit. He doesn't have quite the devastating kick that Morgan McDonald has, so he's got to force the action just a little bit.
Well, we have a minute. We didn't have an opportunity to get any video on this particular performance, but Peyton Otterdahl, the senior from North Dakota State, on his very first throw of the competition, threw 71 2 3/4, just 4 inches off his collegiate record to win the men's shot put earlier today. So congratulations to him. A heck of a performance at the national championships.
And he was virtually unchallenged. He wins the event by almost 3 feet. And speaking of things we didn't see, 3 men remain in the men's pole vault. Duplantis is over 18.9. Chris Nielsen of South Dakota, he's over 18.9.5. And Jacob Wooten from Texas A&M, he's over 18.9.5. Personal best, and facility record for all 3 of those athletes. Excuse me, personal best for Wooten, but a facility record for all 3 guys who have been over that bar.
All right, well, since you mentioned that pole vault, as we continue to watch the 5,000, it's coming up with 17 laps remaining. Let's go take a look at the best jump by Mondo Duplantis so far today. His 7th jump of the competition, Dan, pretty unusual.
Yeah, these athletes certainly don't want to probably take more than a dozen to 15 total jumps. He's halfway through his series, but look at the size of that pole. He's got an extremely long run, great hip height, as you like to say, Dwight, but I don't think there's anybody out there jumping quite with the same equipment that Mondo Duplantis is. You have to do it right to just engineer such big poles.
Well, we've watched him a lot this season. He's jumped at the collegiate record every time, and believe me, he hasn't had 7 jumps under 19 feet in a while, and that includes his senior year in high school. Okay, so let me correct myself from earlier. That is Clayton Young up front for BYU, and he has been for quite some time. And Connor Mance right there, they're going 1-2. And that is keeping Morgan McDonald back in the middle of the pack. It's not too tough a pace for him to hang on to, but he would love to go up and try and slow it down, but just hasn't had the chance. He's probably in, 10th place, 9th and 10th place at this point. It really hasn't moved from there, from the beginning, as they're coming around with 15 laps remaining.
Well, I think that's a really good position for him. He's not going to let the leaders. He's not going to let the leaders get away from him. If they make a move, he's still close enough that he can respond to that. Not let those front runners go away. But Ed Eyestone, the coach at BYU, he trains his athletes. He trains his athletes very, very well. They're not going to let Morgan McDonald get an easy 5,000 meter win here. They're going to push. They're going to push the pace. And this is the kind of situation where a number of guys might have spoken in the warm-up area and said, let's not let this guy run away with it, because he has a devastating kick.
14 laps remaining. They really pushed that second K down from 249 to 246. Let's step aside again as they're coming up with 13 laps remaining. More field event competition.
All right, this is Mr. Everything, Grant Holloway. He probably didn't want to take this many jumps, but this is his 3rd attempt. He really runs off the board, just snuck a peek at it. He knew it was a good one. At that time in the 3rd round, he takes the lead, 26 feet 1. He passed all 3 jumps in the finals, and he said to the field, hey, you know what? Come and catch me. This is Tremaine Jefferson from Houston. He's a senior. Leroy Burrell said, if we get a chance to win this thing, we need to get some points from our long jumper, and Tremaine Jefferson did just that on the 5th round, 26.1.5 for a personal best. He was your American Athlete Conference champion. But this is a guy who has been the bane of Grant Holloway all season long. Rayvon Gray, the junior from LSU. That was his 5th attempt. 26 1 3/4, less than an inch separated the first 3 spots. He wins the SEC title, and now he wins the NCAA championships.
The top 5 are separated by 4 centimeters. That's it.
The women's shot was amazingly exciting. Lena Geiger from Stanford went into the lead with 17.89 on her 6th throw, and then Samantha Noni from Arizona State came back and took the title on her last throw, 58.9 1/4.
All right, coming back around, 12 laps remaining, or 11 laps remaining, I should say. They just crossed the halfway point, about a lap and a half to go.
And in the orange uniform up front, this is the guy who has the most official and best time in the field. This is Eamon Kemboi, 13:33 officially, and right behind him, Morgan McDonald. Eamon Kemboi of Kenya, just a junior.
They were just under 7 minutes at halfway, 6:59.3, so right about on 14-minute pace.
Kemboi was 3rd place at the cross-country championships to Grant Fisher and Morgan McDonald. Kemboi was 3rd place at that great 3K Millrose run behind Grant Fisher and Morgan McDonald.
Now watch and look at the way that they bunched up a bit, and Kevin Sailors has just told me they just ran 4 seconds slower in that 3rd K, and look at what happened. Now you got pushing and shoving, not enough room for them to put their feet down, guys going wide. That's what happens when the pace slows down, and look who is the most happy, Morgan McDonald. He's perfectly fine that that's happening. Right up there too, Edwin Kurgat of Iowa State, running further than he needs to in lane 2, but staying out of trouble. You got a BYU runner boxed there on the inside, but now everybody is back in this race because of the slowdown of that 3rd kilometer.
Robert Brandt is there, and here come the Colorado guys. John Dressel is in there. Joe Klecker as well. You see those Colorado guys in the dark uniforms. I've been having some conversations on Instagram with Joe Klecker about what he eats pre-race, and a couple nights ago he had pizza. Last night he said he went for the pasta, but about 5 days ago he posted an Instagram shot of him eating a very large Indian food meal, and I said, "Oh, that's not a pregame meal," and he says, "I got to get my Indian food before I head off to Alabama."
All right, a little separation now as he definitely is picking stuff up. McDonald going with him, just enough of a separation to make it so that there's a little bit more room for everybody to run. As you see a big move by Joe Klecker from Colorado back into 3rd place. Kemboi pushing the pace. McDonald staying right there with him. 66.1 for the last 400 meters. And look at how they've strung back out. It's amazing how that happens.
Well, Klecker's credentials are pretty solid. He has run 13:35 this season. He's got a 13:30 as a personal best. He was 2nd at the Mount Pacific Indoor. He just ran the mile.
6 laps remaining. And the Alabama guys are working back there in the middle of the pack. Gilbert Keegan and Vincent Kiprop. This has not been a stiff enough pace to keep them out of the running.
Well, watch this pace just quicken. Every lap's going to get a little bit quicker and a little bit quicker. Morgan McDonald, he missed the NCAA Indoors last year. He was preparing for the Commonwealth Games, competed for Australia.
All right, with just a little less than 5 laps remaining, let's go quickly back to the pole vault. A great competition, but this guy has finally put it away. Mondo Duplantis at 19.1 1/2, first attempt. A height that he's very familiar with. He's the collegiate record holder at 19.5 and change. With a little brush, he is over. 8th jump of the competition. That's more than he's had to jump all season long, unless he's jumping at a collegiate record.
Well, not the prettiest jump we've ever seen him take, but he certainly took control of this competition. And Dwight, we wondered you know, if the three guys in the competition who jump 19, how are they going to jump against each other? And he's certainly, the cream rises to the top with him, but the other guys faltered just a little bit. It's easy to jump high when you're the last guy in the competition.
NCAA champion and collegiate record holder Mondo Duplantis, the freshman from LSU. Three laps remaining, and not a whole lot has changed. It is Kemboy, McDonald, Klecker. 63.8 and 63.9 have been the last two 400-meter tours by Kemboy, and he's not really able to chase these top four guys away.
Well, you look at the top four guys, everybody's looking like they're fairly fresh. Edwin Kurgat from Iowa State, he looks like he's waning a little bit. Connor McMillan is showing the strain just a little bit.
Now look, a little slow down here. He just kind of steps off the gas a little bit, just daring McDonald to take the lead, and he takes the bait. And Klecker goes with him. Kemboy's done. Kemboy is spent. He did the work, and now he's out of gas. And McDonald coming around with a full head of steam and a lap to go and a little bit of a gap. And Klecker with right now no answer. More McDonald going faster with every stride. Just a little shakeout for the DMR. Klecker now getting his wheels underneath him, but there's just not enough real estate left. McDonald's going to win the 5K, followed by Joe Klecker of Colorado and Clayton Young of BYU, and also from BYU, Connor McMillan. So third and fourth for the Cougars at BYU. That's 11 points.
Well, Morgan McDonald, excuse me, Dwight. Morgan McDonald, he's too smart. He's too savvy of a runner, and they threw some different things at him. They tried to go slow, and then they tried to speed it up a little bit, but it certainly wasn't enough. You have got to take the legs out of this guy completely, and not many guys would do it. Grant Fisher was able to do it indoors in a big crowd, but there's just too much strength, too much conditioning, too much experience by Morgan McDonald.
Well, the man from Wisconsin and from down under wins it. 13:41.76. They seriously negative split the second half. A 55.8 last 400 for McDonald. Effortless it looked as he now jogs a little bit as he gets ready to potentially run the anchor leg of the distance medley relay for the Badgers. Joe Klecker hangs on for second. Clayton Young of BYU and Connor McMillan third and fourth for the Cougs. Vincent Kiprop finally up in scoring position for Alabama, and Robert Brandt of UCLA scores a point.